Hello, and thank you for joining me today as we begin our discussion on the peripheral nervous system. So your peripheral nervous system is composed of everything that's not your brain and spinal cord. But you have two kinds of sets of nerves. We have cranial nerves. These things arise from the brain. And then you have spinal nerves that arise from the spinal cord. And so your peripheral nervous system is everything that's not the brain and spinal cord those are your central nervous system components. Your peripheral nervous system, your PNS, can be subdivided into two categories. One of those is called the somatic nervous system. So your somatic nervous system is something that you can control. So these are either cranial or spinal nerves that connects the central nervous system to the skin and or skeletal muscle. These are all of your conscious activities. So these require thought and intention. Your autonomic nervous system, think of autonomic as automatic nervous system. This connects your central nervous system to your viscera. And your viscera is basically your gut. Everything on the inside that allows you to function. So your heart, your lungs, your stomach, your intestines, different glands of your body, your bladder, your reproductive organs, all of those, all the things that happen that you don't have to think about. And so I think of this as unconscious activity. Unconscious, probably spelled that wrong. Activity. Okay, and so these are all the things that happen without you having to worry about it. For example, you eat something, and yes, you have to think about chewing. But once you swallow, everything else happens without your thinking. Your esophagus begins peristalsis, pushed to your stomach through your intestines, where all the nutrients are broken down and absorbed. Your water is taken out in the large intestine, and it's sent out your body. Like all that happens without you having to think about anything except for when you need to go to the bathroom. And then your autonomic nervous system. So these are the two main subdivisions of the peripheral nervous system. Your autonomic nervous system has its own two subdivisions. One of those is called the sympathetic system, and one of them is called the parasympathetic. So your sympathetic nervous system, this is your fight or flight response. You get adrenaline pumping in your veins. You have to think you're on high alert. You run at a very high ability and high functioning and high capabilities with adrenaline and under your sympathetic control. Your body's using a lot of energy. All your senses are on high alert. You're ready to go. So this is your increased activity. Now after the stimulus is removed, so you have gotten to safety, you're done with the test, all of this is done, then your parasympathetic takes over. And this calms everything back down. So epinephrine is involved with adrenaline in the sympathetic nervous system. Norepinephrine is part of the parasympathetic response, and that brings you back to a base level that you can function at without causing harm by overusing your nutrients. Okay, when we talk about the peripheral nervous system, we talked about there's cranial nerves and there are spinal nerves. In this video, we're going to talk about the cranial nerves specifically. So a nerve is a group of neurons working together. They can be one of three categories. They can be a motor nerve, a sensory nerve, or they can be a mix or a combination of both. You have 12 nerves that arise from the underside of the brain and the brain stem both. And so this is showing you the underside of the brain, and you can see we have your first cranial nerve. Here's the second, third, fourth, fifth. The sixth one is here. Then you have 7. 8 is on the other side. 9 is here. 10 is back on the other side here. 11 is this one. And 12 is here. These are all your cranial nerves, which originate from the brain and brainstem. And then they go throughout the body. And we'll talk about these here right now. So you have to know these 12 nerves. Your first nerve is called the olfactory nerve. I don't know where that word per se comes from, but olfactory deals with smell. And so because it deals with smell, smell is a sense that you bring in from the outside. It's not a command from your brain. So this is a sensory nerve. So olfactory deals with smell. It's a sensory nerve. Your optic nerve, think of optic as optical, which is things you see. So vision. Vision is also a sense. You can't tell things to appear. So that's a sense. You're seeing things. Oculomotor. So oculo again refers to the eye. This time motor means movement. So this is movement of the eye, and that's your motor nerve, is the oculomotor. Your trochlear is another movement of the eye motor nerve. And so they have slightly different functions, but your trochlear nerve is also a motor nerve with movement of the eye. Trigeminal. You think of tri, you've seen this prefix before. Tri means three. So I think of a face, a really ugly face. But if your face has this, you have 3 points for tri. So it's sensory for the anterior scalp, the surface of the eye, the upper teeth, gums, upper lip, skin of jaw, and lower teeth. So basically, if you were to draw a triangle going something like this, and your eyes should be included in that, all of this is controlled by your trigeminal nerve. It is also, that's all sensory, so that's sensing things from there. Your motor portion of that nerve controls your chewing and the floor of your mouth, the bottom of your mouth. That's nerve number 5. Number 6 is called the abducens. If you remember back with muscles, we talked about abduct. So abducens moves the eye, abducts the eye, which means pulls towards the middle. This is your cross eye. It abducts your eyes, pulls them towards the center, you go cross-eyed. And because they're moving the eye, that's a motor nerve. Facial nerve deals with senses on the taste and anterior tongue, so the front of your tongue, and this is your facial expression. So facial nerve, facial expression. So it senses taste on the tip of your tongue, and then it controls all of your facial expressions. So your smile when you walk into my classroom, your sadness when you leave, all those are controlled by this facial nerve. That was nerve number 7. Number 8 is the vestibulocochlear. So cochlear refers to the cochlea that is in your ear. So this nerve is for hearing, and that structure also has, is designed to help you with balance. So it's got a fluid inside of it that moves hairs back and forth to help you with balance, so you can figure out where you're at in space. So that's your vestibulocochlear nerve, which is number 8. Number 9 is the glossopharyngeal. So glosso indicates tongue. Pharyngeal refers to the pharynx. So because this nerve controls your tongue and your pharynx, it is sensory for the back of the tongue and the throat. This is your swallowing, the nerve that controls swallowing. And so this is the one that once you get the bolus back to the back of your mouth, and the swallowing reflex takes over, this is the nerve that controls that. This is also part of your gag reflex. So that's your glossopharyngeal nerve. That's nerve number 9. Number 10, the vagus nerve. The saying is what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. Well, this vagus nerve, there's a lot that happens in Vegas. It's a motor to the larynx, so it controls your speech. So the reason you can talk is because of this nerve. It's also sensory for pretty much every organ inside of you that we consider your gut. So your larynx, your pharynx, your esophagus, organs of the thorax and the abdomen. So all of those, your liver, your gallbladder, all of that is controlled by your vagus nerve. All the senses on the inside of your body that you don't have to think about that happen, that is your vagus nerve. It is also autonomic for your heart, for different glands, and then again, most organs of the thorax and abdomen. So these are the things that happen without you having to worry about it. You don't have to think, they just happen. That's thanks to your vagus nerve. Because the vagus nerve is sensory, for your larynx and most of that, and then it's motor for a little bit of this, it has to have another motor component. But before that, so this is your vagus nerve coming down here. And so this is showing you everything that's controlled. And so you see your heart, you see your lungs, you see your carotid body, you have your pharynx and your larynx all in there. We said the heart, we talked about liver, we talked about the stomach, your spleen is involved in that, your intestines, your kidneys. All of those are controlled by your vagus nerve. And so that controls your gut. There's 2 left. One of them is called the accessory nerve. And this is the spinal accessory, so you could write spinal in front if you want to. This is the motor component for the vagus nerve. So vagus did all the sensory stuff for your gut. This is your motor nerve for those organs. And then it also controls your trapezius and your sternocleidomastoid. And your last cranial nerve is called the hypoglossal nerve. And so glossal referring to tongue. So hypoglossal is the motor portion for your tongue. Hypo being beneath, so the underside of your tongue. So this is the motor portion for your tongue, is your hypoglossal nerve. These are the nerves. So there's a saying, there's a mnemonic for it, because I know 12 different nerves. For some people it's hard. For me it was hard. So there's a saying, and I'm going to say it and I'm going to write it. Just get it down for now. But the saying is, on old Olympus towering tops, a Finn and German view some hops. And the reason it sticks is because it rhymes. But on old Olympus, ooh, I need on. I forgot the first word. On old Olympus, towering tops, make that capital, Finn and German view some hops. Okay, and so the way this works is on refers to your olfactory nerve. Old is your optic nerve. Olympus is your oculomotor. Towering. The first T is your trochlear. The second T is your trigeminal. Your first A is your abducens. F is facial. Nerve number 9. This is where things don't always match. And so this A should be a V. This is your vestibulocochlear. So yes, the saying works because it rhymes. This is the one that it doesn't quite match on. German refers to the glossopharyngeal. View, that's your vagus nerve. Sum, this is your spinal accessory. So if you think of spinal accessory instead of just accessory, it works. If you can remember that that one is not correct, if you just think accessory, that works too. And then your last H is your hypoglossal. Okay, and the last little bit is to remember that whether they are motor or sensory or both. So there's another mnemonic that you'll remember a little bit easier. But the mnemonic is, some say marry money, but my brother says big brains matter more. So if we look at that, oops, undo that last little line. If we look at it that way, this is going to be sensory, sensory, motor, motor, both, motor, both, sensory, both, vagus nerve is both, and the last two are both motor. So that is the mnemonic to remember if they're sensory or motor. But then you have to figure out what they do exactly, and that helps a lot. If you know what they do, then the sensory motor part's really easy. But those are your cranial nerves, and that is what you will need to know moving forward. Here are some review questions, and so with these, You can answer questions 1 through 5 at this point. We'll get through 6 through 12. We'll do 6 through 11 on the next video. So thank you very much, and best of luck moving forward.